and we'll begin. Head hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, bone marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, diaphragm, spleen, lungs, large intestine, small intestine, stomach, feces, brain, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, grease, saliva, mucus, oil of the joints, urine. Head hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, bone marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, diaphragm, spleen, lungs, large intestine, small intestine, stomach, feces, brain, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, grease, saliva, mucus, oil of the joints, urine. Head, hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, bone marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, diaphragm, spleen, lungs, large intestine, small intestine, stomach, feces, brain, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, grease, saliva, mucus, oil of the joints, urine. Head, hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, bone marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, diaphragm, spleen, lungs, large intestine, small intestine, stomach, feces, brain, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, grease, saliva, mucus, oil of the joints, urine. Head, hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, bone marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, diaphragm, spleen, lungs, large intestine, small intestine, stomach, feces, brain, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, grease, saliva, mucus, oil of the joints, urine. Urine, oil of the joints, mucus, saliva, grease, tears, fat, sweat, blood, pus, phlegm, bile, brain, feces, stomach, small intestines, large intestines, lungs, spleen, diaphragm, liver, heart, kidneys, bone marrow, bones, sinews, flesh, skin, teeth, nails, body hair, head hair. Urine, oil of the joints, mucus, saliva, grease, tears, fat, sweat, blood, pus, phlegm, bile, brain, feces, stomach, small intestines, large intestines, lungs, spleen, diaphragm, liver, heart, kidneys, bone marrow, bones, sinews, flesh, skin, teeth, nails, body hair, head hair. Urine, oil of the joints, mucus, saliva, grease, tears, fat, sweat, blood, pus, phlegm, bile, brain, feces, stomach, small intestines, large intestines, lungs, spleen, diaphragm, liver, heart, kidneys, bone marrow, bones, sinews, flesh, skin, teeth, nails, body hair, head hair. Urine, oil of the joints, mucus, saliva, grease, tears, fat, sweat, blood, pus, phlegm, bile, brain, feces, stomach, small intestines, large intestines, lungs, spleen, diaphragm, liver, heart, kidneys, bone marrow, bones, sinews, flesh, skin, teeth, nails, body hair, head hair. Urine, oil of the joints, mucus, saliva, grease, tears, fat, sweat, blood, pus, phlegm, bile, brain, feces, stomach, small intestines, large intestines, lungs, spleen, diaphragm, liver, heart, kidneys, bone marrow, bones, sinews, flesh, skin, teeth, nails, body hair, head hair. Head hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, bone marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, diaphragm, spleen, lungs, large intestine, small intestine, stomach, feces, brain, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, grease, saliva, mucus, oil of the joints, urine. Urine, oil of the joints, mucus, saliva, grease, tears, fat, sweat, blood, pus, phlegm, bile, brain, feces, stomach, small intestines, large intestines, lungs, spleen, diaphragm, liver, heart, kidneys, bone marrow, bones, sinews, flesh, skin, teeth, nails, body hair, head hair. Head hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, bone marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, diaphragm, spleen, lungs, large intestine, small intestine, stomach, feces, brain, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, grease, saliva, mucus, oil of the joints, urine. Urine, oil of the joints, mucus, saliva, grease, tears, fat, sweat, blood, pus, phlegm, bile, brain, feces, stomach, small intestines, large intestines, lungs, spleen, diaphragm, liver, heart, kidneys, bone marrow, bones, sinews, flesh, skin, teeth, nails, body hair, head hair. Head hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, bone marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, diaphragm, spleen, lungs, large intestine, small intestine, stomach, feces, brain, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, grease, saliva, mucus, oil of the joints, urine, oil of the joints, mucus, saliva, grease, tears, fat, sweat, blood, pus, phlegm, bile, brain, feces, stomach, small intestines, large intestines, lungs, spleen, diaphragm, liver, heart, kidneys, bone marrow, bones, sinews, flesh, skin, teeth, nails, body hair, head hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, bone marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, diaphragm, spleen, lungs, large intestine, small intestine, stomach, feces, brain, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, grease, saliva, mucus, oil of the joints, urine, oil of the joints, mucus, saliva, grease, tears, fat, sweat, blood, pus, phlegm, bile, brain, feces, stomach, small intestines, large intestines, lungs, spleen, diaphragm, liver, heart, kidneys, bone marrow, bones, sinews, flesh, skin, teeth, nails, body hair, head hair, head hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, bone marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, diaphragm, spleen, lungs, large intestine, small intestine, stomach, feces, brain, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, grease, saliva, mucus, oil of the joints, urine, oil of the joints, mucus, saliva, grease, tears, fat, sweat, blood, pus, phlegm, bile, brain, feces, stomach, small intestines, large intestines, lungs, spleen, diaphragm, liver, heart, kidneys, bone marrow, bones, sinews, flesh, skin, teeth, nails, body hair, head hair. Kethaloma nakadanda taso, matam naru atyatimazam wakam, hariam yakanankalomacam piyakam papatham, antham andaguna udarin kanitam matulungam, petam the mumpo lohitam thedo medo, athu watha kelo thinganikalathikam modam. So tonight we're going to start a new group of parts: flesh, sinews, bones, bone marrow, kidneys. And again, according to these, what's called the sevenfold skill in learning, there's 7 different areas that help direct us with the practice. To first know it verbally, and then to know it mentally, and then the color, the shape, the location, the direction, and what it's bordered by. This is helping us to hone into the part. And of course we've added the definition and the function of each part so that it brings on a wider and broader understanding of this particular part. In our practices, as we sense into this, as we begin to go underneath the skin, sensing and feeling what's present, what may arise physically as we sense into it, might arise with our thoughts and emotions, for within this fathom-long body, with its thoughts and emotions, lies our world. Its beginning, its ending, and the pathway to freedom is found within this fathom-long body, a very poetic teaching from the Buddha. Or as Martha Elliott, a poet, once writes, that our history is here inside our body, and our body is our storehouse of all of our learnings and thoughts and experiences. So as we sit with these parts, being mindful of what it gets evoked, at first sensing in physically, but also being aware of what it might evoke with our thoughts and emotions. This practice has both personal aspects and the different stories that perhaps it evokes as we sense into these parts, as well as the impersonal. These parts are made of solids and liquids and motion and temperature, and just have their functions independent of our concepts about them. So we'll begin with these 5 in the verbal formation. We'll say this out loud 5 times and then silently 5 times. Flesh, sinews, bones, bone marrow, kidneys. 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 Now we'll do this 5 times, doing this silently. Now we're going to be sensing into flesh. And flesh means muscle, just so as a point of reference when we use the word flesh, we're meaning muscle. And the color of muscle, or flesh, is mostly red. Its shape is like pieces of meat bunched together, many different shapes and sizes. Direction in the body, it's found both above and below the waist. It's located under the skin. The delimitation, it's bordered by the skin and the sinews, or connective tissue. The definition, there's over 900 muscles under the skin. And muscles are composed of fibers or cells that affect the movement of an organ or a part of the body. It has properties of elasticity, conductivity, and irritability. And it also provides static support, like muscles of the back that support posture. The smallest muscle of the body measures 1/20th of an inch, and it's called a stapedius. It's located in the inner ear. The strongest muscle of the body is the buttock, also called the gluteus maximus. Muscle or flesh is the storage of tissue that's filling in the body, and the muscles, again, their characteristic is its ability to shorten or contract. Again, those properties of elasticity, conductivity, irritability, as well as static support. Flesh, muscles. If it's helpful, you can maybe put your hand on different parts of your body where these flesh or muscles are to get that visceral sense of it if you can, but just sensing into it underneath this skin. All these muscles, 900 different muscles under the skin being present. And so again, as we sense in whatever is getting evoked, as you sense into it, maybe just this very clear understanding of its functions and what it does, and doesn't have much of a story, and then again, on the personal side of things, may evoke different feelings, memories, flesh or muscle being present. Now let us gently shift from the muscles, the flesh, to the sinews, or perhaps more anatomically correct, the connective tissue. And within the human body, there's over 900 different tendons and ligaments and cartilages. These are the connective tissues. The color is white. The shapes are different. There are strings and bands and cushions, found in the direction both above and below the waist, located under the skin and flesh, and interwoven into the skeleton and organs. Its delimitation is bordered by the bones and the flesh. Definition of tendons is fibrous connective tissue that serves for the attachment of muscles to bones and is capable of withstanding lots of tensions. Ligaments are sheets or bands of tough fibrous tissue that connects to bones or to cartilages at a joint, also supporting an organ. In Latin, the word ligament means to tie or to bind together. Cartilages are a stiff and yet flexible connective tissue that forms cushions between bones, as well as the joints between the rib cage, the ear, the nose, the elbow, the knee, the ankle, the bronchial tubes, and the vertebrae discs. Cartilages are not as hard or as rigid as bone, but they're stiffer and less flexible than muscle. Cartilages helps keep the body connected and prevents friction of the bones. The function of all of these tendons and ligaments and cartilages are connecting the body to the bones, the organs. It's kind of like an erector set. So sensing into sinews and connective tissue, when you even move your bones or move your arms, there's all these levers and binds that are able to do this. We can move these connective tissues. Even the sense of talking, all these connective tissues are working. So sensing into the skin, under the skin as the muscle, and interwoven with the muscle and the bones and the organs, these connective tissues. 900 of tendons, ligaments, and cartilages, sensing into this fathom-long body. And acknowledging whatever is present, whatever arises, personally, impersonally, thoughts, emotions, being present. And now gently withdrawing from the sinews or the connective tissue and shifting into the bones. The color is white, the shape, the human skeleton. It is found both above and below the waist, located within the body, bordered. The delimitation is the marrow within, and the connective tissue, the sinews above, with some flesh. The definition: a human skeleton is a bony framework of the body consisting of 206 bones, 80 in the trunk and 126 in the limbs. There's also 230 joints in the body. A newborn baby has 350 bones. It's kind of interesting. We have a 4-month-old at home with us, our grandson, and it's interesting to know he came in with 350 bones, and ultimately as they begin to come together, it'll end up with 206. It is said almost every 7 years the body replaces the equivalent of an entirely new skeleton. The largest bone is the pelvis, or the hip bone, and the smallest, again found in the ear just like in the muscle, is the stirrup. It's the smallest bone in the body. It's found in the ear. It's hardly larger than a grain of rice, called the stirrup. And perhaps you may not be surprised to know that the jawbone is the hardest bone of the body. The function of bones: it forms part of the endoskeleton of the body, and they are lightweight and strong. Bones also store minerals, most notably of calcium and phosphorus, but it also stores important growth factors. Bones support the body and anchor the muscles to facilitate motion. Bones can also protect internal organs, such as the skull, that protects the brain, or the ribs, and the sternum, that protect the heart and lungs. Bones. Seems very fitting at this time, close to Halloween. So just being with bones, the skeleton, and whatever it conjures up. The whole personal part, and then the impersonal, just bones. Being present. let us gently shift from bones to bone marrow. It doesn't get much deeper than this. The color is yellow or red. It's a glutinous tissue, kind of like gelatin. It's the shape of it. The direction is found both above and below the waist. It's located. The marrow is mainly found in the flat bones, such as the hip, the breast bone, the skull, the ribs, the vertebrae, and shoulder blades. It also could be found in the long bones at the end of the femur and humerus. Its delimitation is bordered by the inner surface of the bones. The definition: marrow is the soft tissue occupying the soft cavity of the bones, and there are two types of bone marrow, red and yellow. Red blood cells, platelets, and mostly white blood cells arise in red bone marrow. At birth, all of the bone marrow is red, and with age it is converted to yellow. In cases of severe blood loss, the body can convert yellow marrow back to red marrow to increase blood cell production. The function of bone marrow is the nutrients within to store energy and the formation of blood cells. The bone marrow contains those cells that are responsible for the production of blood cells, red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Bone marrow. And just being mindful of whatever gets evoked. Sometimes for some of us we may not be able to get in touch with this, others we may very viscerally. Sometimes different memories may arise. I'm a vegan now, but when I was a little boy, I remember my mother making chicken and then sucking on the end of bones and sucking out the marrow. It's interesting when you hang out with marrow, what memories are stored within, what experiences bone marrow. Now let's gently shift to the last part of this particular group, which is kidneys. In kidneys, the color are purplish and brown, and its shape is like a large kidney bean. In direction, it's found above the waist and located in the mid-back between the abdomen, behind the abdomen, I should say, not between. In the mid-back behind the abdomen and one on each side of the spine. Its border, or the delimitation, is bordered by the back and the abdomen. The definition, there are two kidneys, normally speaking, and each one is around 4 to 6 ounces, 4.5 inches long, 2 to 3 inches wide, and about an inch thick. The function of kidneys is to form urine from blood plasma. They are blood purifiers, and I used to wonder why is kidneys next to bone marrow till I began to understand more that bone marrow's function is blood formation, and the kidneys are the blood purifiers. They are the major regulators of water, electrolytes, blood pressure, acid-base content of the blood, and indirectly of many bodily fluids. Kidneys also eliminate toxic waste, such as urea. About 400 gallons of blood flow through the kidneys in one day, which equals about 16.5 gallons an hour. So it's just about 7 o'clock. So while we've been sitting here this last hour, approximately for each of us, 16.5 gallons of blood has flown through our kidneys. And it's interesting, there's some biblical references to the kidneys found in the Psalms, in the book of Revelation, as well as found in the Talmud, where sometimes these organs are associated with the mind or conscience. It says that kidneys were once popularly regarded as the seat of consciousness and reflection. And there's also somewhere in the Bible, and speaks about that God searches out and inspects the kidneys of humans, and that the kidneys counsel what is good. So interesting, these biblical references. But these kidneys, coming back from these references, the pure functions is kidneys form urine from blood plasma, these blood purifiers. There may be the personal stories, but there's the impersonal, but there's just functions and what it does. Kidneys. And just sensing in to kidneys. And now gently withdrawing from kidneys as we come to an end of this particular group of parts. Flesh, sinews, bones, bone marrow, kidneys that we'll be working with during the week. And just to acknowledge whatever has arisen as you've sensed into these parts of the body and perhaps what it brought up physically, mentally, emotionally, both personally and impersonally. And that this fathom-long body, this body that we live in, is the only one we live in this life. It's the vehicle that we live inside of, and the pathway to grow with deeper wisdom and compassion. So honoring this body, and perhaps we can begin to see through some of the enchantment, but also there is that sense of appreciation and gratitude. This is the vehicle that we live in, but perhaps we begin to cultivate a wiser relationship, a relationship of deeper understanding. At times, due to our own vanities and concepts, we've suffered immensely on how we look and how we judge and criticize ourselves or others, and perhaps now developing a wiser and kinder and a deeper understanding of this body and the importance of caring for it, because this is the body that we live inside of, to wake up again to greater wisdom, to greater compassion. Perhaps beginning to see through all of the conditionings, all of the stories, all of the narratives. So may all embodied beings, humans and non-humans, we each have our parts. May we each find the gateways into the heart and grow with wisdom and compassion. As we were chanting these parts and as I was reflecting upon them, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, or an Independent, or Green Party, or Peace and Freedom Party, or whatever, nevertheless, this head hairs and body hairs and nails and teeth and skin. May all beings discover the gateways into the heart and grow with wisdom and compassion. May there be peace. So thank you very much. And on some evenings when we gather together, we'll go into breakout rooms and discuss with one another. And sometimes we may not. And I have that intuitive sense tonight to want to just maybe give some space for some comments, learnings, questions. I know last week we were coming to the end and there's still a few hands raised. So I want to give a little bit more time here now. If there is a question, and being that my screen is not big enough at times to see everyone, if you could go to participants and click questions, raise your hand, I can find it. But maybe just first a word about, I understand from looking at the chat that about 10 of you somehow ended in another room. I don't know what happened. Sorry that happened. I think the thing that I'll say is probably the best way to get here, and you may have done all of these steps, is to go to the insightsantacruz.org website on the home page and then just scroll down to the bottom which says calendar. There's actually 2 events that are happening at the same time, or close to the same time. There's a New to Practice and there's the Finding Freedom in the Body, the 32 parts of the body. So again, just double check that you're clicking the right class, because we have 2 simultaneous. Right now there's 2 things happening at the same time. So we have 2 different Zoom links. So you can check that all out, and hopefully you'll find us, and I think that's the best way to get in. And if there's still some problems, I'm glad that somehow you found your way in here. So that's great, and maybe offline rather than right now. You can tell me about how you did it, and I can let our IT person know, and we can figure it out. But I'd rather spend